p.m. already. Yeah, so the broadcast is now
Yeah.
live. Okay.
So, good afternoon. And
Afternoon.
uh, yeah, I've been seeing your tweet. Yeah, I think you are writing some articles. Yeah,
Yes, I am.
right?
Yes.
On Google Docs. Yeah.
Yes, Google says it.
So, please, can you get started by introducing yourself?
Okay. Okay, so my name is Edidiong Asikpo, but I like to shorten to like Edidiong Asikpo because, well, I think Edidiong Asikpo is quite long, but I feel like my dad will definitely be sad when he hears that I just shorten it. But yeah, so I'm a software engineer at InterSwitch. I work in the developer relations team, and I am passionate about like making open source contributions, writing, and also building developer communities. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we all know about you like your work at industry. I don't know. Please, what's the meaning of developer relations? If developers might not know this,
Okay.
so
So developer relations is basically like trying to like advocate for developers that use like your product, right? So it involves trying to create like a better experience for developers that integrate with your products, like products of a particular company. So like for instance, we have like APIs and that developers can integrate with. So it's basically trying to like improve the documentation, our developer console, like when people go to test our APIs, so trying to like improve the experience. So ranging from like ensuring that the dev console is better, so like building better products for developers, testing out those products to be sure that it's actually good enough for people to use it, and like getting feedback from like developers when they use our product and say, okay, hey, maybe this is something that needs to change, and like talking to like the product team, marketing team, and also working closely with the engineering team to ensure that the feedback of those developers are actually implemented. So it's more like working for your company and also working for developers, so to speak. So you're like listening to the feedback of developers, getting so you're representing your company and also advocating for developers, basically. So that's just like the short form of it. Representing your company and advocating for developers that use like the tools or services that your company provides, just to ensure that those developers actually have like a good experience while and when they're using it.
yeah. So, do you work on APIs?
Yeah, so for instance, in touch with APIs, so that means my role would also be to like understand our APIs, right, and how those APIs work, so that if somebody has like certain issues, I could explain, okay, that if you want to use like the payment gateway for it, like our payment gateway, like international payment gateway, so I could explain like, okay, hey, this is how it works, and possibly this is what you need to do to make it work, right? So just like stuff around that. So most companies may not have APIs, and then if you work in a developer relations for that company, you probably be focusing like on other products that that company has. That, but then it's just centered around developers. So because my own company has APIs, that's what I have to understand the APIs of my company. But then if I'm working in a developer, like working in developer relations team in another company that does not provide like API services for developers, it should probably be like focusing on those products alone. So working in DevRel does not necessarily mean that you would have to focus on APIs. I don't know if you get my question. Yeah.
So, you also work like speaking also representing
Yes.
international speaking.
Is there anything?
I said you represent interswitch in speaking.
Yeah. So DevRel is also about that. So I forgot to mention that. So it's involves like I said earlier. It's like trying to improve the experience of developers in your that are using your company's product, basically. So that would also mean that you need to speak at certain events about that product. But then prior to that, like I just enjoy speaking, so I don't just speak about like interswitches like APIs or how to integrate with our APIs, but then just around like everything. Because even though I'm advocating for like interswitch, right? I'm also trying to ensure that I bring in a lot more people into tech. So that means I'm talking about like the things that I've learned or what's going on in my life or what I've passed through, right? And what I learned from those things that I went through, basically. So it's just like talking, because if you think about it, sharing knowledge actually means you get to learn like the second time, you get to learn better, because when you're preparing to teach someone something, you try to understand it like to like the smallest level. I don't even know this code that says um something about if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, or if you can't explain it to your grandmother, something like that. I think it's 5-year-old, I guess. you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, that means you really don't understand it. So when you're about to teach people, that's like when you're about to speak at a conference or when you're writing an article or something, you always ensure that you try to understand it so well that when you explain it, somebody else that sees it also understands it.
Yeah, I that's fine. How did you become a an icon of change at Facebook?
Okay. So I have been leading the developer circle community, which is the community that like the initiative was brought in by Facebook, and it's almost all like trying to reach out to like developers or people who want to join tech. So it's like people who want to join tech, people who are already in tech and like experts in tech. So trying to connect everybody together. So there are times where you see new developers because obviously coding is not easy, right? Even though we like to say that, well, anybody can do it, but then it takes consistency. And you don't just wake up, you
Yeah.
don't learn it today and understand it like and just understand every single thing about it tomorrow. It takes time. So and then people like to give up while they're still in the process. They don't wait till the end. Mostly because they don't have like a good support system. Like they don't have people to support them or they don't have people that they can ask questions and stuff like that. So developer circles aim to bring in these developers up to like educate and sensitize people about technology, connect experts to beginners so that they can actually learn, and also like talk about like Facebook because obviously it's a Facebook developer circle community, so it's like talking about stuff like React and like PyTorch and like Facebook related products, and then it's not just about Facebook itself, but then also about like other things that will help developers. So I basically started leading the DevC community in 2017. That's when I went for my industrial training at Stats Innovation Hub in Akwa Ibom State. And yeah, so that's what I've been doing. So I've been basically trying to like bring in more people into tech, trying to help as much as I can, and also learning from other people. Because the thing is, when you manage communities, you also get to learn like from what other people are doing, like how are they succeeding, what didn't work out well for them, how can you learn from those things, what like it just helps you to be able to manage or have like good conversations with people and become like a better people person. So I like to think Facebook saw the things that I was doing and made me like chose me to be like an icon of change, which was really really amazing because I honestly didn't see that coming, and it was not like okay there was something that was already there, like there was already like an initiative called Icon of Change that would make me just say okay, hey, I think I should definitely um work this hard so that I'll get that. So it was just basically me doing it because I love doing it, because I love like being around developers and like people that are in tech generally and trying to help them as much as I can. So, and it was good to be recognized for something I love doing by Facebook.
Yeah. I think that's very well. That's fine. And what are your main stacks? And how did you go about learning that?
About becoming a developer circle lead, is that what you
No, I
mean?
mean, no, no. I mean, how did you go about learning your stacks? I mean,
Okay, my
Python.
start. Oh, okay, okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Python
All
and
right.
Java.
So I studied computer science, but then obviously because I studied in Nigeria, not to bash any Nigerian university, but most Nigerian universities basically teach you just theory, or even when they try to teach you like the practical code, it's hard for you to understand because I don't know, they just have a way of mostly talking to the board or something, so you don't really really understand what's happening. So it was mostly like cramming what the teacher is teaching you, and then you just go in to like the exams to just write it out. So the change for me was when I went for my industrial training and Start Innovation Hub, which I mentioned earlier, and at that time I got to learn how to develop mobile applications. That's like in Android, and I was just really excited that I could do some of the things that I I was using, right? So it could just be like maybe a share button that you use on Facebook. So being able to implement that was like excitement for me. So that was when I actually started learning how to like code. Aside from the fact that I studied computer science, right? I just started learning how to code from Start Innovation Hub. So it was like for
Yeah, it's fine now.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm really sorry for
Hello?
that. It was due to the internet connection.
Yeah, is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay, because I couldn't hear you again at some point, and then I think my network also acted up as well.
No problem. So let's we were saying something the other time. We were talking
Um,
about
okay.
your learning. Yeah, your journey of learning.
Yes, exactly. So it's when I went to my for my industrial training, I actually got to learn how to code. So what happened was like I had different people that were assigned to because I had to pay to learn at the time. So there was someone that was like teaching me what I needed to know, and then I was also using like a lot of courses from Udacity, and that's how I learned how to develop mobile applications in Android. Then I went back to school, and because obviously I have to focus on like school now. So I was just basically doing like a couple of stuffs. And then when I graduated like the next year, I just wanted to move into like web and not do Android anymore. So I started learning Python by myself. Um, I paid for a course on Udemy to learn, and then that's how I learned Python, and then eventually moved to like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which well, coding is like a continuous learning process. There's never a point where you learn and know like everything.
Yeah.
You just have to keep building yourself because like there are new technologies coming out every day, and there's like new improvements to certain programming languages. So you just have to keep improving yourself. But then to know how I started learning how to code, even though I studied computer science, it wasn't actually like in school. It's when I went for my industrial training at a hub, right? That's when I actually started learning how to code.
Okay. Is that start innovation of
Yeah.
okay? Then you you said your main starts are Python and JavaScript. So what project have you worked on with them?
Our documentation platform because, like I said, it being in Dev is mostly focused on things that concern developers, right? So those are some of the things that I've worked on in JavaScript, like for my company. And then for Python, it was mostly about like trying to create different like APIs because at that time I was contributing a lot to open source and open source organization called MediaWiki, which I'm sure you know Wikipedia. So MediaWiki
Yeah.
powers Wikipedia, right? So I was trying to writing like a lot of sample codes and demo apps on how to use the MediaWiki API in Python. So those are like major projects I can remember. While the other ones are just like stuff where you're just like learning. So it's just like all these basic things that you have to, when you're learning how to code now, there are basic projects you try to work on. But like real life projects that I actually worked on with my skills are like contributing to open source organizations with my Python, like with what I learned or what I understood with Python. And then for JavaScript and like CSS is mostly at InterSwitch.
Okay, yeah. So what about She Code Africa and Women Will? What have you done there?
Okay, so I personally know. So while I was in school, we're just like two ladies in the computer science department, like, and then the rest of them were guys. So naturally, it's the word makes you seem or make you feel like technology or coding is not for women, right? Because it just seems like a man's world. Because men are naturally born with just being able to like figure things out. That's why you see like a young boy growing up and already knows how to like figure out like electrical stuffs, right? But then you rarely find women who just know how to do those stuff because I don't know. I think it's maybe how parents train them or how the world makes them feel like they make them feel like okay, maybe no, this is not for you. But then I was opportune to get into tech, and then I've seen like I've been a benefit of so many amazing opportunities for being in tech as a lady, and just like being in tech generally. So I wanted to bring in more women into tech. I wanted to just let them know that it's not impossible for you to be in tech as a woman. It's totally fine for you to be like shouldn't be like moved to okay here I can't do this because I'm a lady. So that's why I worked with organizations like She Code Africa and Women Will and DefC, for instance, just trying to like advocate more for women. For sure, She Code Africa, I work as a city chapter coordinator, which basically means I try to work with different chapters in She Code Africa. That's like different chapters in different states in Nigeria and also like in different countries across Africa. So it's like onboarding new chapter leads, working with them to ensure that they actually bring in as more women as possible into technology and not just bring them in, but then bring them in and also like work closely with them till they become good enough to mentor or lead other women. So like it's almost like paying it forward. So because I know the importance of this thing or I know why tech is important to me, I know what I've benefited from tech. I'm trying to let other people know that there's so much you can do with tech. So I like to use this example of how people graduate from school and then you come out and you realize that they have no jobs. But there are actually jobs out there, just that people don't have those skills to take up those jobs. Because I literally graduated from school and then I got like a job immediately. And that was because I was in tech. Let's imagine that I didn't um, go to do like my IT at Start Innovation Hub. That means I probably wouldn't have learned how to code. And I'll just graduate like every other normal computer science student. I'm slightly sure I won't be where I am today, even though where I am is not like a lot. But then obviously you know that you have to keep growing. But then
Yeah.
tech gave me an opportunity to learn so many things, to meet so many people, to be able to do so much. And it's just me basically trying to like pay back forward to other people, both boys and girls, both guys and women, but then also trying to sensitize women that it is possible for you to be in tech. So that's why I try to work with these organizations to do as much as I can to just let women know that they can do whatever they set their mind to do.
Yeah. How did you get your first job? How was it for you? How was the
Okay,
journey?
so my first job. Okay, so I had to apply to InterSwitch because I graduated in 2018 and I joined InterSwitch in 2019. But I'm sure you know that in Nigeria, when you graduate, it's always like you have to do like your NYSC. So it's advisable to do. Well, some people don't do it immediately, but then I just wanted to like get it over with. So I did had to do my NYSC before like any other thing. So I applied to do my NYSC at InterSwitch, and I got like called for like the interview. So how InterSwitch works is when you're doing an interview, like they don't your interview as an NYSC staff is not different from that of other software engineers because InterSwitch they pay well compared to other people, like in terms of especially for corpers. You know, some people when you work as a corper in some companies, they don't pay you. As an NYC corper, they don't pay you. But then InterSwitch pays you, gives you like health insurance, and then they also have like free lunch. So there are just like so many benefits that come with being like an NYC member in InterSwitch, which you won't find in like other companies. So the interview process is like basically the same thing, which is write an algorithm test, and then if you pass the algorithm test, you meet the CIO. Then if you pass that one, you now meet the owner of InterSwitch. Then after that, you do like the medical test, and then you get on board. So that's what I did. So I had to write the interview. I passed all of them thankfully, and I joined InterSwitch as an NYC member. So after my NYC stuff was over, I applied to be like a full-time staff and had to go to like the interview process and got like a full-time role. So that's how it worked for me. So I got like a full-time role So it was just like leaving school, my NYC, then I got retained. But overall, I think what worked well for me, like what I did to help me achieve this quickly, was because even while I was still in school, I was still doing like a lot of things. I didn't just wait till I left school before I started doing things, right? So I still had things to say. I still had things to put in my CV. I could say I made contributions to Wikipedia, or I made contributions, or like I'm leading like a DevC community, or I'm working with women to do so many things. You get? So it wasn't just like, okay, hey, I just came out and then boom, I got a job. I had to work for those things. I had to work to get to where I am, or to get those things while I was still in school. So a lot of people ask, okay, hey, can you still do this thing while you're in school? Yes, it's totally possible. But then you just need to like set your priorities straight and know that school is definitely important as well. But then also try to ensure like what's going to happen when you come out of school, because you know there are like over 7 billion people in the world. So how do you stand out in like your own space instead of coming out to join other people that don't have jobs? How do you learn a skill? How do you get better like on your own, aside from like what you learned from school? Like what kind of skills do you have, and how can these skills get you to where you want to be? So it's almost like a lot of self development and commitment and like consistency. So that was how I was able to get my first job, really.
Okay, yeah. How did you go into technical writing? Then I could see your last article, document object model.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Why did
dumb.
you write it?
Yes.
And how did you go about technical
Okay,
writing?
so how I went about technical writing was, honestly, I used to be so bad at writing. Like there were times where when you're just like in a meeting or there's something you're doing that you have, and then you probably have like a suggestion to give on this thing, but because I didn't know how to put what I was thinking in my head in words, I would end up not giving that suggestion. So that was just like how I was like missing like a lot of opportunities, or maybe like a lot of opportunities to be heard, like for like the thoughts that I had or like things that I wanted to share, because I didn't just know how to like do it in the right way. So and I realized that, because obviously like your weaknesses, things that you're good at, things that you're not good at. And then I think, was it the last 2 years, in 2018, definitely 2018, I realized that, and then I said that, oh, okay, I was going to make an effort to be intentional about learning how to write, right? And then one of the things I did was I tried, because usually before that time, if you send me like a message on WhatsApp or any social media platform, if I want to say how, which is HOWAREU and then question mark, I'll just do HW, or maybe AW, then R, then U. Do you get? Instead of actually like typing
Yeah.
it out well. And if you think about it, doing that actually doesn't help, because like, why are you rushing to? If you want to send it, just send it well, because it's going to make you not improve on your writing, and you'll not be getting used to like using short form. So you realize that most of the time when you're sending like an important mail, you might end up using short form, for instance. So that's the first thing I did, like try to be intentional about writing everything I wanted to write out like in full words, and then also try to start reading, because I never used to like reading. I just read because I had to pass my exams, not because I loved reading. So anytime I see like a long post, I'll literally skip it. Like I'll just say like the beginning. I won't even read like the entire post. I'll just go to like something else, because I didn't really like spending time to read. But then I realized that if I wanted to learn how to write, I had to be able to like read, because obviously I want other people to read what I'm writing, right? So I need to understand what do people love to read, how, and when you just read it, it increases or like it improves your vocabulary, so to speak, because you learn new words, learn how other people write and all that. So and then I did like a lot of research about like, okay, how can I start writing? Took like, I think it was one book like someone shared with me, and I stumbled upon a quote that said, "You learn how to write by writing." Do you get? So you don't just sit down and say, "Oh God, I want to learn how to write," without writing. Like there's no way you're going to learn how to write. So you actually had to start writing, and then that's what made me start. Even though at the time I started, it wasn't. I didn't write the best words. I still don't write the best words now, because I'm still, like I said, you don't reach a point where it's over. You have to still learn, keep learning and keep improving. But then I started, right? And that was just how I like kept. And then if you think about it, when you start and keep doing it, eventually you realize that there's like a significant amount of improvements. Like your consistency level is actually improving a lot. Your vocabulary, the things, the words you're using, how you are making people understand those things are actually important. And then for the dumb article, so I like to write about things that maybe I probably had issues with understanding and was able to figure it out. So I'm like, okay, if I had a problem with understanding this thing, chances are someone somewhere also has a problem with understanding it. But then
Is it
I
you have a misunderstanding with Dom
no,
self?
not misunderstanding. Like, you know, when you're learning something, sometimes it might be a bit hard to understand that thing immediately.
Mm,
Do you get? So
yeah.
whenever I don't understand, or I like to be like when I'm studying something, I like to write it out like in my own words. So if I'm studying, let's say let's imagine I never knew what an API was. I'm learning about an API, so I'll study like with different sources and try to like write it down in my own words because I know that maybe sometime I forget about what this API is and I need to reference it. And if I go back and reference it, sorry, like look at it in the way I wrote it, I try to understand it better. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So, and then I knew that the DOM was like something that was very, very important for like newbies, like anybody who wants to do like stuff around front end development should be able to understand the document objects model. And then I just, at the time I was like, okay, I realized that there were a couple of content around that already. But then I actually never really saw like a particular thing about like manipulating the DOM with JavaScript, like if you actually search for that code online. So I just thought, okay, maybe even though this content is out there, someone somewhere might just understand it the way I write it and not like, because I think it's sometimes people have issues of saying, no, I don't want to write this thing because like a lot of people have already written it, or I probably don't have like someone probably don't understand what I'm saying, like it's not really necessary. And I just try to say, okay, fine, even if nobody understands it, I'm writing it for like my future self, because maybe I might forget what a DOM is or forget how to use one particular, like maybe like the get element or ID method or something. So let me actually just write it and like put it out there. And which I did. I actually wrote it down. And I was just shocked to see that so many people were actually having problems with not understanding this thing as well. And we're able to now read the article that I wrote and now understand it. So it was just like, and then it just made it very clear to me that because there are already a lot of content about a particular thing out there, doesn't mean that you shouldn't write your own content, because you never can tell who it is going to help, really. Yes.
It actually helped me also. I had a problem with Dom also, and that's why I decided to talk about this too. And hello? Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I really don't know what's wrong with the internet.
No problem. So I said the Dom at school really helped me also. I had a problem with Dom and
Mm.
it really helped me, and that's why I was talking about that. So what's your main advice for developers who are watching this?
What I always like to say is, so there are like different people, like different sort of people. There are people that are trying to get into tech, and there are people that are already there. So I love to say, if you're trying to get into tech and you think maybe it's not like the right thing for you, or you're already there but then you're like just like struggling a lot, I'd like to say, like, just keep staying consistent and like always try to be like your biggest cheerleader, because you may not always have people may not always be there to encourage you, except you do something really successful that make people now know that, okay, hey, there's somebody out there called Edidiong, right? So you actually have to like start from somewhere and stay consistent at whatever you do, right? But then if you're somebody that is trying to get into tech, I'll just tell you to start. Don't think about it too much, just actually start and try to stay consistent, which is also important. So start, stay consistent, be your biggest cheerleader, and also I think put yourself out there, because if you think about it, I don't know if there's this article that Prosper wrote about like who is speaking on your behalf, like
Yeah.
trying to put yourself out there, like trying to let people know what you're doing. So people may like to see it as being proud, but then it's not being proud, it's just putting out your content, like what are you doing, what are you working on, because you really don't know where your next opportunity is coming from. It could just be that someone is on your timeline seeing that you're really passionate about tech, or you're really good at JavaScript, or maybe you're really passionate about like sharing your knowledge, and the person that invites you to like the next thing that will not cause like a better opportunity for you. So always learn to put yourself out there, even if nobody's listening, because that's how we started. Nobody started and had 10K followers on Twitter. Like nobody started and like nobody knew somebody at some point. Like the Elon Musk, today, there was a time where nobody knew about him. Of any other person doing like great things in tech in Africa and like across the world, like there was a time where nobody actually knew anything about them. So they actually had to like start, put themselves out there. Because I feel like once you share good content, even though it feels like nobody's seeing it or nobody's doing anything about it, like someday one person will see it. And when one person sees it, that one person recommend another person to see it. Do you get? So your content would still like get to be seen by a lot of other people, right? And then even if you think that nobody wants to read your article, nobody wants to hear you speak, just like do it for yourself, like for your future self, because you might actually need to read that article. Like you might actually forget something, but like, okay, I think I wrote something about this. Let me can read it like in my own words. So just to rephrase again, stay consistent, be your biggest cheerleader, and put yourself out there. Like put out what you're working on, what you're doing, like share knowledge. Try to bring in as much people as possible. Try to help people come into tech, because there are a lot of opportunities there. And like tech is just like it's now. It's no longer the future. We used to say tech is the future. Tech is the future. Like that future is already here. So tech is here to stay, really. And I feel like everybody should jump in as soon as they can.
Yeah, I think we've spent more time due to the internet
Yeah.
connection. So
Yeah.
maybe I should just
Sure.
say thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, and bye. Yeah, it was really nice
All
having
right. Thank
you.
you very much for having me. Same here.
Yeah,
All right. Do have a
so no
nice
problem.
day.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye.
Yeah, bye.